Hi everyone, I'm Claire and I'm here to share with you a brief presentation on dynamic emergence. Dynamic emergence is the phenomena of novelty arising when two or more elements meet. The phenomena of novelty arising when two or more elements meet. And I come to this as an artist, as a healer. I do sound healing, I'm a recording artist, performing artist. I also write and do photography and various other visual formats with regards to the arts. And I'm just really interested in how arts and creativity and consciousness relate to our evolution. So here we go. So the question is, how are we here and how are we being here? Experiencing all these multiple dimensions of reality. We don't even know how many there really are. And we're doing it through life's creative process as well as our own. So we have these various ways of knowing, and those ways of knowing affect and influence our ways of being here. And in turn, of course, our ways of being here influence and inform our ways of knowing. For the sake of simplicity, I have boiled down Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, as well as other ways of considering knowing, into three main areas: rational, emotional, and sensory. So I'm calling those our ways of knowing. Now, those show up also as ways of being, and that's our thinking, our capacity to think, to feel emotionally, and to sense things vibrationally. So that's kind of subtle energy as well as not so subtle energy. And those are our ways of being. Now, we have an incredibly clever and sophisticated design so that we can, in fact, know things in these different ways. And they connect us cosmologically to other levels of experiencing. And these exist within us. They're right inside each of us. So that answers that question. Where does all this knowing live? It lives inside of us. And that's called the inner res, inner, rational, emotional, and sensory, RES. So that's how that looks, simply put. Rational, emotional, and sensory existing as kind of an environment that is intrinsically inherent within each of us. It's private to each of us. So when we ask the question, who's in charge of that? Of course, the answer is you and me. We're each in charge of this territory. And what we do with it, how we take in information, what kind of belief systems we create from that, that's all happening inside each of us. That's our free will choice. Of course, everybody has it. And how do we share it? Because we're not isolated. We might look like we're separate, but we're actually in a shared context. So that's the outer res. So the outer res is a reflection on two elements coming together so that they can interact somehow. They're creating a shared field of reality. And this is something that we do together all the time. It's unavoidable. There's literally no way to be alive in this planet and not be somehow interacting with the planet, whether that's another human or a tree or any aspect of life itself. That outer res is called the marketplace because it's a transactional zone. It's where we interact with each other, and you might think of it as a formal environment, whereas the inner res is personal and private to me. You don't get to see what's happening in there, and sometimes I don't even know what's happening in here. But with the outer res, that's where we're interacting and having conversations and communicating in life. So that might be me going shopping, me buying a bus ticket, me having a phone call with somebody. It's a more formal, externalized environment. And there's an example of two people meeting and creating a shared environment. The yellow is that outer res, the blue, and what it contains, that's the inner res. We need to consider why any information is relevant. So I want to know, why is this relevant right now, what I'm talking about here with dynamic emergence? And the truth is, there's a few reasons. One is because we, as humans, are simply missing out. We've got this extraordinary design, but we're not taught about it at school. We're not taught about our metaphysical presence. We're not taught about our living systemic presence, the fact that we're alive and that we have all these ways of knowing, that we are inherently creative. So we have a shared consciousness. That shared consciousness means that everything about me influences everything about you, and vice versa. And this is going on all the time around the whole of life. Everything is shared. And we have also this essential creative nature, which at school is not really taught to us. We're invited and encouraged to get very rational when we go to school and to leave behind what is called childish ways. And that, I think, is a huge loss for the way we then move through the world as we become older. These things matter because we are evolving. We are constantly evolving. And if we're not evolving, we're staying the same. If we stay the same, then we do nothing but repeat the past. And we can see from the way the world is evolving as a collective globally through world economies and the state of the planet, that we need to up our game. We need to become more inherently aware that we are in fact magically designed, literally magically designed. And what that means is we have the capacity for transformation, our own transformation and the transformation of environments that we participate in. So what happens to us when we connect with each other? Well, simply put, we're sharing energy. We're sharing energy, and that means we're also sharing information. And we can choose to do that either creatively, which I would suggest is a positive experience, or we can do it destructively. And I would say that would be a negative experience. We do continually experience each other because we have shared fields of reality. We constantly affect each other because we have shared fields of reality. So we grow or reduce the possibilities available to us together all the time, across time and space. Our thinking minds, our feelings and our senses, they travel. They travel through dimensions of reality, and they create new realities together, all the time, moment by moment. We use our imaginations and our ability to think, to feel, and to sense. Now, a question is this just for us humans? And I suspect you know the answer to that. Perhaps it's more accurate to say that this is a part of life, a part of life's aliveness. Our potential, our human potential, is collective because of this sharing of consciousness that we have with each other. We cannot escape that. We are part of it. We can fight it, and we do, but we can't escape it because we are inside this aliveness. We are inside the system of aliveness. Our collective consciousness is human. Another way of thinking about that, though, is that we are actually humans having an experience. We're having a human experience of collective consciousness. When I say here within the bounds of our specific human design, if you think about every species is designed differently. We look different. We have different capacities, different ways of being intelligent, different ways of working with our environment. So the collective consciousness of being human, how we are designed, the shape of us even, and the ways we know, those are going to be how we get to experience the larger collective consciousness. Everyone, every type of being that's alive has its own design, as I just said, that explains what's possible for them. So the question being here, does this have something to do with our creativity? And so what I want to say is this, that there's a force inside us that is trying to generate itself outside of us. It's energy, it's an energetic force, and it's throughout the universe. And this energetic force is traveling through us. It creates us, in fact. And then it's trying to express itself outward into form and into interactions. Energy is very social. So we relate to it as humans through our thinking, our feeling, our sensing, and our intuition, our intuitive knowing. We create things with it. And we affect each other's fields of energy with it too. Those kind of go hand in hand. And so you might begin to think about the idea that the more self-aware we are, the more we can have a positive influence on each other's fields of energy, as well as on our own. The thing to be aware of, though, at this point, because we're trying to evolve, is that our consciousness is planetary. So although we have a relationship with one another through our shared human consciousness or our shared human experience of consciousness, we are embedded in a much larger system of wisdom, and that is planetary. So yes, we're sharing that experience of aliveness with other living beings, with all beings, in fact, with all of life. It's all alive. Whether or not we can speak hippo or tree, it doesn't mean that we're not actually having an interactive experience with it, an influencing experience with it in both directions. So where is all this knowledge coming from, and who and what is it affecting? Well, I would say that the information comes from planetary consciousness, but it travels, as I say, in both directions. So we affect the consciousness of planet to some extent. We definitely affect the wellness of the planet and the planet's potential to stay alive and to keep supporting us in being here with planet as planet. Some people are still shocked by the idea that the planet's alive, that it feels and thinks and knows. It may not do it in the way that humans do it, because it's designed in a larger way, much more complex even than us, and we're each very complex in our design too. So let's think about that. If the planet is able to generate life, intelligence, novelty, empathy, and relationships, it must be alive, intelligent, novel, empathic, and relational. Earth, like any other living being, needs a home, a source of inspiration, a source of information, and a place of nurturing, a place of belonging. That would be the cosmos, cosmological consciousness. So these nested hierarchies of interaction and dependency are alive and generating new forms all the time. The cosmos, of course, is intelligent and creative too, and very, very much alive. It does this, it proliferates its aliveness through energy interacting. This is a huge aspect of the aliveness of all these different living systems. Where energy interacts, it creates new languages. These languages show up as, for example, form, adaptation, interaction, biology, chemistry, music, art, words, vibration, and many, 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 many more. We learn by listening deeply through our own special ways of interacting with it, with the energy. And how we interact with it is actually what makes us each uniquely human and creative. Our ways of knowing and being are how we improvise with life, as part of life, just like jazz musicians. So is that how information travels and form becomes form? Is that how you and I became form? We are all part of this intelligent, creative aliveness, this living system. We inform each other, which is the more intellectual aspect of it, but we also enform each other, meaning we bring each other into being through our interactions. So how do we connect with it all? Strangely, we connect with it by exploring our not knowing, having talked about that we know through rational knowing, emotional knowing, and sensory knowing. There's also this consideration of not knowing, and that is actually our gateway to a much larger wisdom. We do this by being open. That's very, very key. And by feeling the energy as it travels through us. And getting to know the languages of energy. using our hearts and our minds and our senses. It is literally one giant cosmic conversation. We can read some of the energy also with our intuition. And our rational, emotional, sensory and intuitive knowing are in fact what connect us to a much deeper knowing. Using our rock star imaginations, the things that we're told to let go of when we transition from being a child to an adult. Everyone says, oh, that's just her imagination or his imagination. But the truth is our imaginations are such precious gifts to us. We really, really need them. They're how we innovate. It also means connecting to the creative vibes, like as in vibrations, of the planet, of life, of the cosmos. It is literally all vibrating. If it's not vibrating, it's not alive. Even in decay, there is movement happening. So there are forms of vibration occurring. This embeddedness in all these layers of knowing, the inner res, the outer res, our collective consciousness, of planetary consciousness, cosmological consciousness, these realms hold our collective wisdom. So we have to learn how to journey to them. And we can do it with our rational minds. We don't have to think of the rational as this sort of slightly cold, calculating place. It is the place of reverie, of dreaming, of poetry. The wisdom that we're talking about, this collective wisdom, is actually what connects us to the whole of life, as I'm just saying. And as we know, the basis of all good collaborations that are worth anything are mutuality, showing up with curiosity, with creativity, and with consideration, to listen, to work with. So a lot of people might ask, how is this useful? And how is this actually affecting us? How is it relevant today? And there are some obvious reasons. It brings so many gifts, so many gifts. It brings us our creativity, our intelligence, our wonder, and our curiosity. It also brings, I would say, perhaps the most important thing, our relationships. And it brings us into a giant conversation, a cosmic conversation. Cosmic conversations are, in fact, cosmic collaborations. And as you can see here, the intuition, and our not knowing have a relationship of their own too. So although we have the rational, the emotional, and the sensory, they have certain limitations to them. But I think our intuition and our not knowing are, in fact, what connect us to the vastness of being. How else does this all affect us? Well, let's think that through. When we don't know that we're part of the cosmos, that we're part of the earth, that we're part of each other, we use the energy that travels through us to create things that do not sustain life and that harm the living relationships. Because everything is non-local, which means that it's basically everywhere, it's not localized in one place, and because energy permeates everything, connects everything, that means that everything is connecting to everything, everything is affecting everything. We really can't get away from that. We can use our human ways of knowing, rational, emotional, sensory and intuitive, Resi, to respond to what the planet, to what life and our collective feels and thinks and senses and needs. We can also respond to what each of us individually is feeling and thinking and sensing and needing. By caring equally for all ways of knowing and being, we become whole too. Connecting, we connect to all levels of being and belonging. We do this in love and respect. When we listen There's something about us, our gentleness and our deep compassion, that can come forwards, that can meet one another in that mutuality. What a complex and beautiful and amazing place this is that we live, this cosmos. What an incredible place to be fully alive, to be fully conscious, fully connected, fully supported. My name is Clare Hedin. I am showing up here with a request to consider, to reconsider our beauty, to reconsider our aliveness, to reconsider the extraordinary gift that we have to know ourselves, to know one another, to understand the planet as alive, to care for and nurture one another, to be respectful and in reverence for life. I really believe that if we understand more about our possibilities, by understanding more about our design, that we can start to respect and to extend who we are. We are in a critical moment of our evolution where we're not just affecting ourselves, we're affecting the planet that we have assumed for so long has the capacity to endlessly give. And the truth is, the planet can give, but not when it's compromised. It needs our support so that we show up in ways that are so much more magical and innovative, articulate, clear, and compassionate. So I thank you so much for watching this. There's much more to say. There are courses that will take you more deeply into these and other concepts around dynamic emergence. But the truth is, it's about becoming. And it's helped me by giving me a structure that makes sense of some of the things that I have felt, the more empathic aspect of being alive. And I hope it can provide some kind of assistance and support to you too. Many thanks. Namaste.